Well, imagine paying thousands of dollars and waiting years to bring your family to Canada for a new life, only to find out the person you paid has been charged with fraud and your application was never sent to immigration officials. Well, that's exactly what happened to one Afghani national who says he paid $15,000 for he and his wife to move to Canada from India. And now the woman who took his money is being charged in 3 separate fraud cases, and more than a dozen victims have come forward. He said he's been waiting to come to Canada since 2011 and he wants justice.
First she said 3 years, then it became 4 years, then it stopped the 5th year. All the time she was giving us a new excuse that there is a rush. One day even she told us our case has been moved to Canadian Embassy in UK. It's not about money anymore. How about my 6 years that she wasted? How can I get that back? If she told me at the beginning, I could just go directly apply over there, Canadian Commission. It take about 4 years. Now I have to wait 4 more years to do the procedure all over again.
Under arrest is 61-year-old Sakia Mojadidi, who heads a charity organization called Afghan Refugee Relief. She's accused of scamming victims of more than $40,000. City News was first contacted by Ahmed about his case last year. He sent us copies of a receipt for the first payment he made to ARR in 2011, signed by Mojadidi. We tried to speak with her back in May, but we were told she was on vacation. The charity's website is no longer active, but once boasted pictures of the group's president with community leaders, including Peel Police, and she even posed with then Mississauga Mayor Hazel McCallion at the centre's new location opening. While Mojadidi's arrest is good news for some, it means little for those still hoping to come to Canada.
They're going to have to start from ground zero. The people in Canada who've lost their money, they may never see that money again, but more importantly, the people who are outside of Afghanistan who are desperate to come to Canada to find some kind of safety are no further than they were years ago when the application was first supposed to have been filed.
Now, Peel Police say since they issued the release of this fraud arrest, they've received complaints from across Canada, the U.S., and India. They say in some fraud cases, sentencing may require the person who is convicted to pay restitution to those victims, but it doesn't guarantee that they will see that money. Now, we also reached out to Immigration and Refugee Canada, and they say that those who provide immigration advice must be in good standing with the Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council, or they have to be a lawyer or a member in good standing with a law society. But coming up, we'll hear from a legal expert who points out that that wouldn't have helped out in this case because of a legal loophole. Now, earlier in the show, we told you about a Mississauga woman charged with fraud and accused of taking thousands of dollars from would-be refugees hoping to come to Canada. She allegedly pocketed that money and failed to submit their applications to Immigration Canada, leaving many of them waiting in limbo for years, only to discover their applications were never filed. There have been nearly a dozen complaints to Peel Police since that release came out. Now, we spoke with a lawyer about the gaps in regulating groups who help refugees and how the charity status of the accused organizations may have helped play a role in allowing her to defraud people. He also talks about how difficult it is to prosecute cases like this because of geography.
The problem is that organizations that allegedly don't take money don't require any special regulation or any professional conduct or anything like that in order to process applications. It makes it very easy for a charitable organization to say that it doesn't require, it's not required to be a member of a law society or a registered immigration consultant in order to represent people. In a lot of cases, they'll take a fee off the books, they'll take money in cash, and they'll simply say that this is necessary. It's a processing fee. It's a little something extra that's required to process. It's very difficult whenever somebody's a victim of a transnational fraud to get a police report filed and then also to have that police report acted on. That's one of the problems with prosecuting wire frauds around the world, is that it's very difficult for somebody to find a police force that's willing to take jurisdiction, and then once that police force takes jurisdiction, there's a level of interagency cooperation that's necessary and is very, very difficult.
Now, earlier this month, the Canadian Border Services Agency told CityNews that on average, their criminal investigations department receives about 180 referrals for immigration consultant fraud every year, and that they open about 40 investigations annually. They say since 2013, they have had 20 investigations result in convictions.